Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy Hodges. I'm a certified peer support specialist here in the state of Colorado doing support and referral consultations worldwide. I'm the author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, and the founder of OCD Game Changers and co-founder of OCD Peers. We run groups every single day at ocdpeers.com. Check us out. Come join us for a group. If you're looking for therapy, treatment here in the States, also in a few provinces in Canada, in the UK and Australia, and there may be some other countries added, check out NoCD, which is also an app, and you can find out more about them at treatmyocd.com. They do ERP via telehealth. So for more information, check them out if you are looking for therapy in those countries and in every state here in the States. So today I want to talk about relapse. I think this is such an important topic. It doesn't get talked about enough. I also, relapse meaning when you are experiencing an onset of symptoms after a period of time where you didn't have them. This can occur whenever, whether that be before you've gotten treatment for OCD, it can be after you've gotten treatment for OCD, it can be years after treatment or years after OCD feels somewhat dormant. So don't get caught up in the word relapse. I just use that because it's easy. But basically what I'm talking about is the return of symptoms after not having symptoms for a really long time. First, I just want to normalize how terrifying relapse is. How scary it feels, especially if you've had a bout of OCD that really sent you to a dark place prior. People even get caught up in the fear of a relapse or fear of symptoms returning after they get to a point where symptoms haven't been present for a long time. Today, I just want to talk about what that feels like, how I view relapse, and maybe in a way that tries to reframe it for you. But I am going to be really honest with you. It's not easy to positively reframe relapse because it hurts. It's painful and it's really scary, especially if you think, or if you are at a place where you have felt good for a long time and you're worried about whether or not the relapse is going to send you to an even darker place. I'm going to start with this. A lot of people who experience OCD symptoms and they're very deep into their symptoms, whether that be, the onset of it and the duration of it, the intensity of it, we can tend to go to a really dark place. A lot of times we refer to that as rock bottom. I have been to rock bottom in my 20s, and there have been other times where I definitely have seen it and done what I can to get out of it, to kind of climb back up that ladder toward the light again, right? Because rock bottom is really dark. Do not underestimate that you may have experienced a traumatic reaction to being at rock bottom, or a traumatic reaction to symptoms for the duration or the intensity. And that's definitely something that you may want to talk to your therapist about. You can absolutely get treatment for it. You can get help. An OCD therapist may not be able to help you with that if they're specialized in OCD, but you can definitely go to therapists that specialize in trauma therapy and work through some of that stuff that keeps you stuck. I know for many years I experienced these really intense fears about getting to a place that I was when I attempted suicide years and years and years ago, when I didn't know it was OCD and I had had it for so long. And it turns out that I had experienced trauma, not only from the situation of suicide and hospitalization, but for the amount of time I lived with these intense thoughts and having no idea what it was. I never even thought that I was worthy of saying that I had had trauma, right? I mean, when we think about trauma, we think about really horrific things, abuse, neglect, world events, war, terrorist acts, natural occurrences like hurricanes. We think about trauma in that way. But I'm going to tell you something. OCD is absolutely an illness that can bring about trauma, and it is okay to explore that avenue, to get some help and some treatment for it, and you're worthy of saying that that's what it is. I can't give advice on getting therapy, but I do know that a lot of times in the OCD community, therapists that treat OCD will not tend to mix those. So you might need to get therapy for OCD symptoms first, and then maybe move on to get trauma therapy, or whatever your therapist feels like is the best. If you go to a therapist and they say, I want to treat your OCD with trauma therapy, no. You can't treat symptoms of OCD with trauma therapy. You can treat trauma from OCD with trauma therapy, but it's really important to understand the distinction and to be able to communicate that to your therapist, because they may not even know or understand OCD. Now let's circle back to trauma. I'm sorry, relapse. I'm like, what video am I doing? I'm gonna try to reframe relapse for you, and you're gonna be like, shut up, Chrissy. I'm not doing that. One of the things that relapse or return of symptoms has taught me in the years even after therapy is that it is such a great teacher. Now, in the moment, I'm like, fuck you, teacher. I don't want to be taught. I just want to feel better, right? But I try to remember this when I'm feeling really awful, is that when I come out on the other side of this, I'm going to be able to evaluate how I got to that place in the first place, and I'm going to get a lot of clues on why symptoms came back, what I neglected to see in order for symptoms to get so intense and impact me the way that they did. And you can't know that without going through a relapse or an onset of symptoms. Oh, I hate to tell you that, but it's true. You can't know that because usually in our first kind of break with OCD, we've been suffering and we don't know what's going on. Then we find out what's going on, and it's kind of this rush of, can I get therapy? Can I find a therapist? Then I get therapy, and boom, then you go, I'm better. I'll never be bad again. All of us do that, by the way. And you just think to yourself, wow, that was a doozy. That's a great time to get some therapy on grief or trauma to start the healing process of what you just had to do, and also the big change in your life, knowing now that you have a mental illness, how to manage it moving forward. But it's so important to remember, you gonna relapse. And I want to do this video to tell you to not be afraid of it. In fact, I don't mean embrace it, but what I mean is a lot of people go the opposite direction when they get diagnosed and treated for OCD. I want nothing to do with that. And a lot of it has to do with stigma. A lot of it has to do with that was traumatic. I don't want to think about it. I'm scared of what would happen if it happened again. So they run away from it. And what that does is you're not remembering that things can get bad again. So I look at, once I get through with a relapse or onset of symptoms, and just so you know, I'm there. I just got through a big bout of OCD these last couple years. It was unrecognizable. It took me forever to work through it. I did it. And now I'm in the phase of, how do I prepare for next time? I mean, yeah, you're going to be like, that's gloom and doom. And I don't want to do that. But it's not gloom and doom. It's knowledge. It's information. And that information is so important. Because if you can start preparing and you start looking, okay, I see OCD, then you start also believing it's real. I really didn't believe that I had OCD until the first big relapse. I mean, yeah, treatment worked, and it was like I got diagnosed and the medication worked for me when I was on it, and all this. But then when it went away, like the symptoms, the really intense symptoms, then I kind of went into that space of, maybe that really wasn't OCD, which of course sets me up to relapse. But I do remember thinking, was that a fluke or was that really OCD? Now, when I relapsed the first time, the big relapse, that's when I knew. Because I had to think to myself, I had to go back, remember what I had done in order to get better, implement those things, do the work, and just have kind of that faith. Not religious faith, but just the faith in the things that I did before, that they would work again. And it did. And it took a little bit longer because I was remembering that I did therapy and, oh, I got better real quick. No. I didn't remember the weeks and weeks and weeks of hard work I put in until I started to get better. And that's what's so hard about relapse. Your memory is very skewed about what things were, and it's also skewed on, is it possible for me to get better again? And what if I don't? These are really common fears. But this is a crude, stupid, comparison, but I feel that way every time I have really bad menstrual cramps. I pop that Aleve and I think, what if it doesn't work this time? That's so stupid in comparison, but it's still the same. I am in pain. I take Aleve and I'm just sitting there going, I have to have faith that I've done this before and it's going to work this time. And yeah, during that 20 minutes that it takes to kick in, I'm sitting there like, oh my God, it's never going to get better, yada, 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 yada. Now I know relapse is on a bigger scale than the 20 minutes you have to wait for your cramps to subside. But sometimes that's just what it takes. Now, I want to share with you before I wrap up, relapse is common for everyone. Remember, everybody relapses. You're not going to be any different. You're going to relapse. And when you do, you're going to think you're alone and you're going to think you're right back at square one. It's going to feel that way. But our memories get very skewed. They get very black and white. I got better once. I'll never be able to do it again. It's probably not OCD this time. I'm going to do ERP this time and find out it's not OCD. Or I'm going to take medication again. The medication's not going to work. It's going to prove it's not OCD. All of these fears are common. What I want you to leave this video with knowing is you are not alone. Now, I know that phrase probably feels overused. I don't give a damn. It's so true. And you need to hear that when you're in a relapse. You have to get as comfortable as you can in the storm of the relapse, knowing it's going to pass. You're going to do everything that you can, make all the right decisions, get with a therapist if you can, get with a peer support, come and see me or Chance, come to an OCD peers group, go to a local group in your community, go to the NoCD app, try to not to be so compulsive on social media because that might not help, but go to sites, go to the OCD stories, read the article Choice by Philipson, some of these things that can be in your toolbox when you relapse, that you can go to every day, not compulsively, but just, okay, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to get through this. Because you will. Relapse is hard. It's a great teacher. You have to go through relapse to understand how to shape your recovery. And when you go through it, please know there's so many of us out there that have been through it and maybe going through it right now and you just don't know. Reach out and get some help. You don't have to do this alone. So if you're looking for peer support, head over to ChristyHodges.com. Myself or Chance will be able to help you out with that. My assistant will write you back with all the instructions on how to sign up on my calendar. If you're looking for therapy, treatmyocd.com. And if you just need some groups to drop into, head over to OCDpeers.com. Here's the thing, if you're there right now, if you're in a relapse right now, or if you're afraid of a relapse, I just want to tell you, I know how hard it is. I know how scary it is, okay? You're going to get through this one day at a time. Get as comfortable as you can in this. Do everything that you can do to move through it and reach out for the support that you need because you deserve it. See you next time.